let me know if the voice is slow. If the voice is low, I'll just add the mic. Okay, so we'll just go ahead with our notes. Okay, I'll also share you the content as well. So all the content, but here this is what we have, right? So we were discussing about the three-tier architecture. So in the three-tier architecture is what we thought of discussing it more in detail. So three-tier architecture is something which happens to have three tiers. The bottommost happens to be the database tier. So every server will have three tiers. Please mute this. Um, okay, so now we have got this three-tier architecture. Every server will have the three-tier architecture. So in this three-tier architecture, what do we have at the bottommost layer? Bottommost layer we have the database tier, and on top of it we'll have the application tier, right? Then on top of it we'll have the presentation tier. So these are the three tiers that we are going to have. Okay, and so our laptop, whichever our desktop or laptop that we are connecting with backend server is considered as a presentation tab. So basically the input and output is done through this output is done through the presentation tab, and here all the processing of the code happens at the application tab. All the data is stored at the database tab. So this is a very generic concept that we have across the software field. Okay, so let me just now go ahead with the three-tier architecture. Three-tier architecture is what we, let me just quickly go through that, and we'll understand that more in depth. So we've got this one, and just so here is the database tier, application tier, and presentation tier. So database tier is where we have all the data, and the processing is done at the application tier. Presentation tier is where we actually log in from this, right? So now we need to understand what exactly is the role of dispatcher. As we were discussing yesterday, dispatcher is something which will coordinate with the database and the presentation tier. So before the introduction of application tier, it was two-tier architecture, right? So in the two-tier architecture, what used to happen is in two-tier architecture, we had this only database tier and presentation tier. And in this, like, application tier was not there. So during that time, database tier is something which used to have the data, and when we have a huge number of, I mean, like, if there is an excess load through from the presentation tier to database tier, it used to crash or it becomes slow. Now to control that, we have an application tier where everything is taken care of by the dispatcher, and the dispatcher in turn will give the work to the work processes, and each work process will do one work. For example, the first user is giving the delete command to the database, then it will be processed through one work process. Another person will do the edit, it will be done through that, and create, it will be done through another one. So this is how it will be done. So the processing is done from each system. Now at any given point of time, one work process can take up only one work at a time. And if the dispatcher is not able to control the load, and if the work processes are not enough, we can immediately increase the dispatch and increase the work processes. So our database once upon a time was like your pen drive. So your pen drive cannot be extended, right? So you cannot make a 16 GB pen drive to 32 GB, right? So you just have to replace and you have to buy a new one. So our database was like that in once upon a time. So if you have a database and you want to increase the capacity, we had to replace with a new database. But today it's not the scenario. We just can connect existing database to a new database, and they will both work parallelly with each other. So with this concept, what we understand is we can add number of databases to the existing database. We can add number of applications to the existing application, and we can obviously had any number of input and output devices. So because we are able to extend each and every tier in these three tiers, it is also referred to as entire architecture in some softwares. Entire architecture. But this is not something which is used in SAP. We never use a term called entire. So n means n number of times we use n, right? So if it is a lot of numbers, it will be n, right? In the mathematics, similar to that. So entire. So that means that you can add any number of databases, any number of applications, any number of presentation. Okay, but we still call it as three-tier architecture only in SAP. So in the history we were discussing, right, that we had a lot of software, like a lot of softwares, and in that one of the software was R/3. So how the R/3 software used to be written is the naming convention was something like the R/3 4.7C or 4.7 EE, something like that. So this is something which is which is a naming convention of it. So after 2000, SAP renamed it as SAP ECC, and the names have been changing. But even after the name change, it still has the three-tier architecture. So those days they wanted to highlight this property of three-tier architecture, but later they thought this is very common, so they moved on and they did that. Okay, so they renamed it, but still the three-tier architecture will be existing. Now, if you go back, dispatcher plays a major role, and in ABAP, so as I told you, all the ABAP code will be processed in the application tier, right? So we are looking at this three-tier. In the three-tier, we are looking at the database and application here. These two are database and application. We are looking at it here. So database is here, and the application is on the left side. So the application tier has the ABAP interpreter. We have database interface, and we have the local buffers. Now, what exactly happens here is, in ABAP, there will be two types of codes in SQL. So from the ABAP perspective, when we are discussing from the ABAP point of view, there will be SQL commands. Now, what are SQL commands? SQL commands are not SQL language. We keep hearing about SQL language, right? But what is SQL command is any command which goes and connects with the database. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's say I have used a simple write statement. The write statement need not go to the database and get the data. Because if I say, sorry, if I just say write SAP ABAP, okay, that's a simple write statement. We don't have to use the database, right? So database is something which will not be used. Now that's the reason it will be like, it's not an SQL statement. Any statement which actually gets connected to the database is SQL statement. And why do we connect with the database? To get the data, to either to access the data or to update the data or to delete the data. So some manipulation of data has required. So only when the data manipulation is required, we'll have the database server. Okay, otherwise we'll not have the database server. Clear? So it will not go and connect with the database server. Now let's say if the application server is going and connecting with the database server, then in that case we'll have two types of commands. One is OpenSQL command. The second one happens to be the native SQL command. So the OpenSQL command which we have is something which actually goes and connects back with the system and gets all the data at one time. For example, let's say you are using a select statement, and the select statement basically brings the data from the database tier to the application tier, right? Now in this, we have to get this data from the database. What happens here is in the OpenSQL, it will select all the records at a time. In one go, it goes, brings all the data. Let's say if you have 1,000 records, all the 1,000 records will be brought to the local buffer, and then it will be stored in the local buffer. From here, you use that local buffer, you get the data from here. So next time when you want the data, all the data is temporarily stored in the local buffer. From here, you take it and use it during the runtime of the program. After the runtime of program, the data will be washed out from the local buffers. Okay. But native SQL, it will bring only one record at a time. So let's say if you have to bring 1,000 records, it will go from the select statement to the database 1,000 times. Every time a new record will be brought. Every time a new record is brought to the application server. So this is what will happen in the native SQL. So once upon a time we used to use native SQL statements, but then we moved on to OpenSQL, which will be more performance oriented, because it will OpenSQL will have less burden on the database, but the native SQL will have more burden on the database, right? So because every time it go and hits the data, hits the table. Clear? So we are going to use more of OpenSQL statements, but in some cases we might also have to use the native SQL statements. Is my voice clear?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Yeah. So let us now go ahead with the. So as I told you, everything that we do, we create here, will go and store in the database tables. Okay. So let us now go ahead with explore the data types. Let's explore some data types. Now, what are data types? Data types is a concept which enables us to give some properties to variables. Now, what is a variable? Variables, it is something which can store values. Okay, it can store values. Now let's explore certain things. For example, let's say I have data empno of 10 type n, something like this. Now what are we doing here is we are giving the properties to a field called empno. We're creating a new field called empno, and the length is 10 and the type is n. So what is n? N is numeric text. So what are the different types of data types is what we need to understand. So in data types, we'll have the first thing is data types, we have the elementary data types, and we have the so basically we'll have the predefined. Order predefined is one, and then we have defined. Then we have this elementary data types. We have structured data types. Elementary data types and structured data types. Now here again we'll have elementary data types, elementary data types and structured data types. Both will be there. So we'll have this system defined data types and user defined data types. Now in this we are discussing about the elementary system defined data types. This is one of the type. Elementary system. Elementary defined data types. Elementary system defined data types is something which we have here. So elementary system defined data types, we are going to have the first one happens to be character, numeric text. It's called numeric text. We have n, we have integer, I have to go for, we'll have something called date, d, define a variable of type date, you can just say d, and then we have time, have float, f, decimal. So these are the elementary system defined data types in which we're going to make use of each and every one of them, like character, numeric text, integer, date, time, float, pack, decimal, etc. All these we'll make use of them, each one of them. So let's go ahead with, so I'll go with this as ZTX underscore. So let me make use of the first one. What's the first one that we have is data, say A of 10, right? C. Now A is equals to, and when I use write A, okay, write A, then what will happen? That SAP ABAP will be typed. SAP ABAP is typed. Now, let's say if you put inverted quotes. Now, if you put inverted quotes, what will happen is A will be typed because it will take it as string. So string value, it will take it as a constant value. So A will be typed. So when you want to type something inside that field, then you need to just go for without inverted quotes. This is what we have to do. Right? So this is how we use it. Basically, now we can, why we use the colon is something which we need to understand. Let's say I have data B of type n. Okay, B of 10 type n. Now here we'll go for B is equals to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, and then we'll go for write B. Uppercase or lowercase both will have the same meaning. Okay, so write B, save, syntax check, activate, execute, and you'll get this SAP ABAP 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now this is fine, but if you observe here, data is getting repeated twice. I'm writing data again and again. So for that, what we have to do is we have to go ahead with, instead of writing like this, write like this. Then we need to write it. And for write statement also, this is slash. Also, so instead of writing this again and again the same command, we'll use the colon and comma. Both are important. If you miss colon or if you miss comma, any one of this, it will throw an error. Both are required. So if you give a colon here and give a comma, you can define n number of fields, n number of variables we can define. Okay, this is how we are. So we have used character, we have used numeric, right? Now, what if I don't give the length? I just say something like say C. I'm not giving any length here. Then what will happen? Default length will be 1. So for me, in this case, it will type only S. It will type only S. Save, syntax check, activate, execute. Okay, so I have to use write V, right? So S will be typed. So the left side value will be typed. The first value in the left side will be typed. Now when I say So here also, since I'm not mentioning any length, default length will be 1. But when we say W is equals to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now in this, if you see, the length is 1, right? So the last number on the right side will be typed. Last number on the right side is 5. So let's say slash W. And what will happen? When we execute it, 5 will be typed. So what is the point that we have to observe here is that here in characteristic it's left aligned, and in numeric text it is right aligned. That is what we need to remember. Okay, and if you don't give the length, it will default have the length as 1, and if you don't give the type, then default type will be character. Now I'll go with another one, W, and say something like Q of 10. Q of 10. So I'll go with applications, and then we have to go ahead with dash Q. Now what will happen here is like save, syntax, activate. So we get systems AP. Now if you observe, I didn't give any type here. For Q, if you observe here, I didn't give any type. So default type will be character. And in character in SAP, it can store anything. Now what do I mean by anything? It can store characteristics, it can store numbers, it can store special characters. Everything can be stored in this queue. So syntax check, activate, execute, and you get systems 1, 2. Right? So this is what will happen. Let's go ahead with the next data type, which happens to be integer. For integer, you don't need any length. E type I. Okay, E is the variable, right? So I can give. What is the difference between a numeric text and integer? In integer, you can have positive and negative numbers, right? So E is equals to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minus. Whether you give the minus at the beginning or at the end, it will still give the value as it will still give the sign at the end only. So 1.345 minus. So minus will always come at the end in SAP. Here, now what we'll do is we'll make use of the next. Okay, now when I say integer, I'm not giving any length, right? Then what's the default length? Default length is 10. So how many numbers do we have now? 10 numbers are there. 9 plus 1, 10 numbers. So it will work fine, and you will get the output. But the moment I give it as 11 characters, 11 numbers, it will throw an error because integer can accommodate only 10, including minus. Even if you give minus or if you don't give minus, it's not an issue, but it will take only 10. So it will throw an error. System will throw an error. Clear? Okay, then we'll go back. Here we'll go ahead with use one number and it will work fine. That's it. Let's go ahead and go with the next one after integer. We'll go with type D. Date will always be in the format of YYYYMMDD. YYYYMMDD. So when I say G is equals to 25/01/025/31. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm giving the year first, then month, then date. So we'll go ahead with G. So even though I'm giving it as a year, month, and date, it will give the output as date, month, and year. So date is 31, month is 12, and 2025. On date format, we can modify that. Then we have something called time. Okay, type T. Now for time also, we need not have the length, and by default, it will have the time in the format of hours, minutes, and seconds. Hours, minutes, and seconds. Now when we execute it, E is equals to this is 10, 20, 30. So this will be 10 hours, 20 minutes, 30 seconds. So 10 hours, 20 minutes, 30 seconds is what we have. So the moment the process, whatever way we give it, accordingly we can get the output. So in the same format as hours, minutes, and seconds, we'll get this. Okay. Now this is what we have, and this is about the time. Next we have something called float. Hope you all guessed what exactly is float. Float is all about type F, right? So float is decimal values. Now how many decimals value we can have? 10 decimals before the point and 10 decimals after the point we can accommodate. So we go ahead with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We can have save, syntax check, activate. So then we will go ahead with syntax check, activate, execute. So we get this values here. So now if you observe this value, it is in the format of exponential. Okay, so now how does it work? Now whatever number is taken, it will be converted automatically into exponential form. Now how it is done? See, if I give that variable g is equals to 134.56789, something like that. Now the output will be in this format: 1.2345678 into 10 to the power of exponential form of how many decimals it moved here to the left. 3 decimals, right? So it will give 10 to the power of 3. So basically, no matter whatever number you give, the decimal will be coming immediately after the first number, and then how many decimals it has moved left, that many number of exponential number will be there. So now, because so maybe it has moved 8 decimals here. That's the reason plus 08 is coming. E plus 08. Now comma is coming because the system settings are for US. So for US, wherever you use comma, they use decimal, and wherever you use decimal, comma. Means what? No. This is something like, yeah. So here we have 1 point, right? In the place of dot, they use comma. We can change that format. You can just go to the system and user profile, or user data, and then we can change that. Here we can just go for, here decimal is coming and comma is coming here. Instead of that, we'll go for our Indian format and save. And this will be replicated only when you log out and log in. Only after logging out and logging in, it will work. Okay, fine. This is what we have, right? Now this is about the data types. We have something called tagged. Now what is tagged? So let's say you have a amount needs to be represented. M type P. What happens here is there are 2 decimals, right? So it will, the values will come up to 2 decimals. So 2 decimals, till 2 decimals will have that value. Now, what do I mean by that is, if I say M is equals to 45.6789, then what happens is, like, once we do this and I write M, it will round off the values till 2 decimals. Okay, it will round off the values till 2 decimals. So here the value will be till here. Okay, but then it will change that to 67. So 67 will go to 68. We'll change the 68. So automatically it will convert that to decimal values. So save, syntax check, activate, execute, and you'll get this 12.234568. Fine. So if to round up the values, we'll use the tag. And hexadecimal is base. Hexadecimal is base 16, and we normally use this base 16 for base 16. We always use it for compressing the values. So let's say we have got this was, so something like U type X. So X is always base 16. So if you give the value as some length as 4, it can accommodate 8 characters. So you can have up to, I'm not sure if you remember this in the school, you have studied that 5th standard or 6th standard, that in decimal, in hexadecimal we'll have numbers till 9. After that we'll have A, B, C, D, E, F. Only 15 numbers we'll have. So we can accommodate all those things. U is equals to, I can accommodate E, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can give this. EF should be in capital letters. And we'll go ahead with U. So EF 1 2 3 4 4. Now if I give at the beginning, if I give something like J is not accepted at all here. So it will throw an error saying that it's not possible. J is not there at all in that, right? So this will. Now hexadecimal is used in very special cases wherein we have to compress that number or something like that. But otherwise we rarely use that hexadecimal. All that we use it. These are the very frequently used data types that we are talking about uh, till P back. Okay. So this is very important for us. Let me just share this program with you. Just share the program and you can access this. Okay, I'm just trying to make it simple. Going forward, whenever the complicated programs will start, I will use another notes wherein we can have only the programs there. Okay. Okay, so this is about the elementary system defined data types. Now let's understand one more very important concept of um, structured data types. Before going ahead with the structured data types, we need to understand the significance of types. So what is types and how it works is what we need to understand. And all. Okay, let's take a scenario. I have name 1, length 10, it's name 2 of length 10, name 3 length 10 is what we have, and we can have name 1 is equals to some name, name 2 is equals to this, name 3 is equals to, right? So these are the things that we have. Now you write name 1, name 2, name 3. So we'll get this all the names. This is fine, and we'll get a ERP SAP ABAP. Fine, right? Now here, if you see, I'm using the same properties for all the 3 fields, and if I use the same properties for 10 fields also, so what we can do is we can generalize and use it in types. Okay, if I have to change the length, I have to change length for all fields. So instead of that, instead of doing like this, what we can do is we can go for types. types name of length 10 type C. We'll go for data name 1 type name name 2 type name 3. So instead of going ahead and defining the properties for each and every field, we're declaring it in the types. And if you make this as something like 12, then automatically all the fields will have these properties. So if we change the properties here, automatically it will be reflected for all the fields. Simple. Now, anything that we define in types cannot store data. Cannot store data. It can store only properties. Now let's say, now what do I mean by that? If I try to save something like name is equals to will throw an error. System will say, I don't know what is name, because name is not defined in the data, right? It is defined in the types. So it cannot store the data. It cannot be used. Now for that reason, okay, I'll show you the error here. It says, I don't know name. So the field name is unknown, but there is a following fields called name 1, name 2, name 3. Means it does not recognize name as a field at all. It refers to that as a type. So it can only store the properties. So the simple rule that we have to remember here is that anything that is stored in the types cannot store data. It can store only the properties. That's what we need to understand. Clearer? Yes. So types is something which we use it for storing the properties. Now, let's say there is a scenario where we have to save employee records, employee data. Now, if you observe in name 1, name 2, name 3 set, so I will go for name 1 is equals to DW means data warehousing. Okay. So now I have assigned two values for name 1. Now, which one do you think will print? The first one or the second one or both? Any answers? Any guesses? Will the system type the ERP? Will system type data warehousing, or it will type both?
Last one.
Exactly, the latest value will be typed. So the old values are overwritten with the latest values, right? So DW is overwritten with the overwritten on ERP. Now when we see the output, it will be data warehousing but not with ERP. Okay, data warehousing but not ERP. ERP is washed out. So with this, what we understand is elementary data types, whatever we have, cannot store multiple values. Elementary data types, this is elementary, right? Elementary data types cannot store multiple values. It can store only single record at any given point of time. Now, that's the primary thing we have. So then how do we store this data? Now there is a requirement that you have to store multiple fields and multiple values. So let's say you want to store employee number, employee name, employee number, employee name, department. Now we'll go ahead with something like 1, 2, 3. Employee name is say A, B, C. Department is SAP. So now if you have to store the data like this, you want to create multiple fields and you want to assign multiple values, then you have to go for structured data types. Elementary data types will not work here. Okay, so what we discussed all this time is elementary data types. Now let us discuss about the structured data types. We'll create a structure and we'll use that structure and you know, first we need to create a structure. Then we need to create an internal table. Then we need to create a work area. So a structure can hold only the properties. Only the properties. It can hold only the properties. Now what do I mean by that? Properties in the sense, it can store only the employee number, employee name, department. It can only store the properties of it. And internal table can store multiple rows of data. Multiple rows of data. Work area can store row of data. What do I mean by that is, if I have this multiple internal table will have multiple rows of data, right? So you have 1, 2, 3, these are the multiple rows of data. Work area at any given point of time can store only single row of data. Now the question is, if internal table can store multiple rows, why are we declaring the work area? Work area acts like a gateway to the internal table. Work area acts like a gateway. Now what do I mean by that? Now let's say you want to assign a new set of values for D and SAP. If you want to create this record, first you have to assign that values to the work area and then append that into the internal table. That's what you have to do. So we need to go ahead with the values to the work area. So let's go for that. Types of st underscore mp of st underscore em mpno of length 10 type c mpna type c department of 5 type c. So whatever. Now I'm giving all type C, okay? So that's okay. So the reason I'm giving type C is type C can take anything and everything. So this is how we declare the structure. So as I told you, anything that we declare in the types cannot store the data, right? So this structure, what is the structure name that we are creating here is st underscore emp. Okay, so we are going to discuss this program once again tomorrow. So, but please observe this. Try to understand in the first go. If it does not get it, you don't get it, you can go ahead with the recording. You can check the recording. Otherwise, we can discuss it again because this is a very important concept. Okay. Now, what are we doing here? We are creating a structure. And why do we create a structure? Just to hold the properties. It means we are creating these fields, creating the properties for the fields. That's it. But internal table can store the data. Now, how do we define an internal table? We need to use data it underscore emp type standard table for underscore emp underscore emp. This is what we have. Then what we'll do is we'll go ahead with types data. Then we'll assign the values to the work area. How do we do that is we'll go ahead with empno to mpna is equals to if it is equals to, now after assigning the values, we need to go ahead with w underscore empty no append mp2 it underscore emp. This is what we have to do. Now what are we doing here is, please understand this. Now we are first assigning the values to the work area, because we cannot assign the values directly to the internal table. Please remember that we cannot push the data directly into the internal table. We have to first assign the values to the work area, and the work area can push to the internal table. So as of now, you can just compare this work area as a corridor to your classroom. So let's say you have a classroom and you have a corridor. So if you want to get into the class or come out of the class, you need to use the corridor, right? So now the work area is just like that. You want to get the data into the internal table or get out of the internal table, it has to be through the work area. So it will be like a gateway, right? So now here we have this data. I'll go for this as 101. We can go ahead and we can push the data. How many records we want, we can push, and then once the data has been updated into internal table, we are going to type it. So for typing, again you have to bring this data into the internal table work area, because work area only you can use a write statement. Loop at it underscore mp into w underscore mp. So what are we doing here is in loop w underscore mp hyphen emp mpna department. Now the loop does the exact opposite of what append will do. So append, what exactly it will do? It will bring the data from, it will, the loop will actually bring the data from internal table to work area. But append, what it will do? It will move from work area to internal table, right? So this is what will happen. Okay. So let's execute this program in the system and see this output, and then we can go ahead and discuss this once again in the tomorrow session. Let me just once execute this program and show it to you. Save syntax. Oh, that inverted quotes will not work here. The one which I used there, we have to again redo it. All inverted quotes have to be changed. So we have only two records. Two records will be displayed. Later we can go for multiple records as well. Okay. So the two records have been coming out. Let me add one more record and show it to you. That one more record also will be getting updated here. 102. So this is what we have. Okay, so you can add more number of records in practice. We are doing it. Okay, the server access details will be shared with you. So once we get this, it will be shared with you. Fine. Okay, so from here we'll discuss in the tomorrow's session. You please go through that, and recording also will be there for you.